Okay, here we are again. I've reduced the scenes back down to where we started, so I've just got the face cam. Sorry about that again. And we've got the sound from my Zoom H5. Apart from that, we've got very little to work on. I've still got the filters that we set up previously, so I've got the chroma key, the color correction, and the LUT on there, just so it's all in a reasonable position to start. What I'd like to talk to you about this time and show you is grouping objects as well as nested scenes, which I think is something really useful. So what we're going to do is I've cleared out my scenes. We're going to go through the same process we did before. I'm going to duplicate this scene. So I've got my face cam scene. I'm going to duplicate it and call this screen share. There we go, if I can type. And here I've got exactly the same thing, nothing different, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the background because we don't need that anymore. I'm going to lock this. I'm going to take my face cam and I'm going to scale it slightly. Just going to move it down to here for a moment, and that'll do for fine. And then we'll add in our display capture. Call it display capture, and this we've done before. Happily get this screen. I've gone a little bit quicker, but that's because you know what we're doing now. Fit to screen, right click, fit to screen. Lock that in place because that seems good, and then move it to the bottom. So here we have where we were roughly before. I've got me, I can move around in different size, but it's quite nice sometimes to perhaps put a little frame or something around the face cam, or any sort of, if you've got something inserted on the screen, sometimes it's nice. Face cam works okay. If I get rid of this red box, then it's okay because it looks like I'm just living on the screen, but let's add in a frame anyway because it's something useful to do. So I'm going to go add, and this I'm going to add an image, and this image is going to be my frame, and I'm just going to say OK to that. And I'm going to pick up an image. Again, I'm just going to say again, if you pick up an image, then it needs to be in the same place all the while. So downloads is a useless place to put these, but for this course I'm going to clear these out later anyway. So I'm going to say gold frame, and I'm going to go OK. And I've now got this weird gold frame. Gets a bit difficult to see what's going on here, so I'm just going to get rid of the display capture so I can see what's going on. And I'm going to line this frame up roughly over me. So we'll just go like this. I'm just going to shrink it down ever so slightly, let's say to there, put it here, and then I'm going to get myself, where's my face cam? Here it is. And I'm going to move myself so I'm in the frame, and I might scale myself down slightly so I fit in the frame nicely, just so I sit there on that. Looks good. Yeah, lovely. And then I can lock that in place, and bring back the display capture. And that's great. Now the problem is I'm in the wrong place. I'd like to be down here a bit more. What I can do is I can take the frame, move that down so it's next to the face cam, and you'll notice it's on top of the face cam. If I move that the other way around, if I go down like that, then you can see that I'm slightly indented, and I'd have to really carefully line the face cam up. But I'm quite happy that the frame can be over top of that, so I'm just going to go over top of that. That's fine. What I can do is I can click on one, hold down shift and click the other, so I've selected both these, and then right click and group. If you've done any sort of painting package such as Photoshop, you'll be so used to grouping layers and objects, but if we're new to it, it's something we're just going to group these together so that we can move them together. I'm just going to call this framed face cam. Return, and then you get this little arrow at the side, and I can fold that up, and I've now got framed face cam. And if I click on that, I can then move me and the frame at the same time, and I can scale both things at once. And I can pop myself over there and lock that. And that's great. So now I've got a disembodied head that, again, if I unlock that, I can move over to here, and it doesn't look so silly with having my cut off at the torso because it's got a little frame on it. And that's great. So I can now move that around. We can then go to a completely new scene. So let me go right click on the scene, duplicate, and I'm going to call this outside for reasons that will become obvious in a moment. And now I've got exactly the same scene. Everything's exactly the same. It's taken the group over and everything. We've got our audio and we've got our display capture. I'm going to get rid of the display capture, remove, and I'm going to add in this case, a new video capture device because I've got another webcam plugged in. It's not a very good quality webcam, but it's another webcam. I'm going to add that in. I'm going to call that other camera, and it's going to go looking for that, and I'm going to call it USB camera, and there it is. in all its glory. It's not a terrific camera, but that's, if I look that way, that's what I can see out my window up here in the Orkney Islands. Beautiful Orkney Islands. I'm going to take this camera and I'm going to do the transform, right click transform, edit transform, and we're going to get rid of the left because there's nothing there, because it's a different aspect ratio to what we'd expect. So I'm just holding down the up cursor key to get rid of that, and then I'm going to do the same thing, hold down the up cursor key to get rid of that. There we go, and then close that, and then I can scale this by grabbing that side all the way to the side of here and move that up to say here, lock that in place, and then move that to the bottom so it's underneath my face cam. So now I have another scene, and again, if I wanted, I could move this over to this side because I want to talk about things in a different way like that. But I've got the frame and me all in one go. So now when I flick between the scenes, I've got my two scenes, but my frame and my face cam are all in one go. Now this sort of works well, and I like it. It's great because it means that I can move two things at once or three things at once. But there is actually a even nicer feature in OBS, which is a nested scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to zoom this up so it's a little bit bigger. So let's go for, say, there, and then we'll right click this, and I'm going to say transform, transform, where are we, center to screen, like that, just so I know that it's centered in screen. That's great. And then lock that in place, and then, oh, there's a neighbour coming past in the car. I'm then going to take other camera and I'm going to tweak this a little bit. So first of all, undo the lock, and I'm just going to move that so that it's on the right hand side there, and move that so it's on the left hand side there, like that. Yeah, and then let's move it down a little bit, and we'll actually tweak this in the transform. So we'll go edit transform, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak the top. OBS works in a slightly weird way that it sort of moves the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. So we'll do that like that, and we'll move this down so it's on the top like that, and then we'll bring back that window and move the bottom off. You have to sort of play with it to get used to how OBS moves the things around. Close that. That looks pretty good. I'll lock that in place. So now what I've got is I've got a frame with the face cam in front of it, with me all keyed in nicely, and this is all lovely, and I'd like to use this somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new scene, and I'm going to create literally just a brand new scene. So we're going to go add, and I'm going to call this funky video, like that, and there's absolutely nothing in here. I'm then going to add a media source, so I'm going to add a background video for this, and I'm going to call this funky background video. And I'm going to go browsing, and on I've got this fantastic disco background, which is going to be looped. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? And we'll stick that on there. We'll full screen it, and that's going to run there fine. Now I want to bring in my face cam as before, but this time, instead of copying anything else, I'm going to go add, and I'm going to add a scene. So I'm going to nest the scene that I just created inside this scene, and I'm going to go scene, and I'm going to select outside, and it brings in the whole scene into here, and I can then do everything with that scene that you could imagine I could do with the face cam before. So I'm going to move this here, and I'm going to right click that, I'm going to go transform, and I'm going to center horizontally so it's at the bottom of the screen there, and then lock that. But here's an important thing that I think is well worth mentioning, is that when we did the grouping before, we were dragging around the individual items. This time we're going to drag around absolutely everything that's included in this outside, which includes the frame, the other camera, my camera, and the audio mixer items. So this H5 is coming along as well. So if I go to funky video, I've got the funky background video and just outside, but if you notice, the H5 audio has come along with it. So everything I do inside outside, which is unfortunately named, but everything I do in that scene will be reflected wherever I put it. but I get the audio for free. That's the thing that I like about nested scenes, is that I can make all sorts of changes to this, including adding all sorts of audio, all my microphones and anything else that I've got, put into here, cameras, different cameras. There's, you know, there's 2 cameras in here and 1 microphone, but all it becomes is then for all other scenes, I've just got 1 line to add in. The other lovely thing that we haven't talked about before is you can actually add filters. If I go right click on this scene, I can add a filter to the whole scene. So on top of this, I could do a keying out, and I could do anything else, but I'm just going to go color correction. I'm just going to let it call color correction, and I'm just going to completely desaturate it so it's black and white. And I might make it slightly more moody, so I'm just going to increase the gamma slightly and then increase the contrast to make it slightly more extreme, just for the sake of it. Yeah. So I've now changed that scene, which means when I go back to Funky Video, that whole scene picks up on everything I've changed. So one thing we can then do is we can go back to screen share. This is the old-fashioned way of having here. I can then get rid of my Zoom H5. I can remove that. Yes, please. And then I can get rid of everything inside the face cam, remove that. So all I'm left with is the display capture. And then I can go add a scene, add the outside, and now I've got everything, including the microphone and all the lovely scaled video, and add that back in there, and I get that for free. So now I've got a lovely consistent face cam that I can use everywhere in the scene. So I've got a Funky Video scene, which I can go up to there, and I've got my screen share scene, yeah, all with everything I need from the outside scene that I've got here, and it's always going to be the same. So if I make a change to the outside, it will then change everything elsewhere. This is the lovely thing about that. And then I can go one step further. I can go back and add my stinger back in if I so desired. So then when I go back to Funky Video, it'll have the stinger, and it's always a consistent sort of delivery. Yeah. So nested scenes might seem complicated, but they're actually a fantastic way to do grouping, and you get the audio for free. That's the thing that I want to keep. I keep saying that, but it does mean that if you've got some sort of complicated arrangement of, so for my piano streams, I've got some complicated audio. I've also got a couple of views that I want, but I want to change the background all the while. So the only thing I want to change is the background. So the lovely thing is I can set everything up in this particular scene and then just create new scenes with different backgrounds. But if I have anything to adjust with the audio levels or anything to adjust with the camera positioning or moving things around, I can do that on this one scene, and then every single other scene will take advantage of the changes that I make. So nested scenes are absolutely brilliant. They really are fantastic. And do remember that you can add filters to the scene at the scene level. So I can add that silly scroll, for example. So if I add scroll, call it scroll, and add a ridiculous up and left like that, that's affecting that scene. If I then go to Funny Video, then that's going to have that scene change. If I then go to screen share, that's going to have that scene change, and they're always going to have it. I'm going to get rid of that because it is ridiculous. But it's the point is that I can change anything on this scene and it will be reflected in all my other scenes where it's got that attached. It's a feature that has so much power because you can build up quite a complicated scene and then use that in all your other scenes. Remember, this is a live view. This camera, if I stick my hand in front of the camera, that's a live camera. So I've got 2 cameras as well as an effect, and it's all running well. I should say that you might see it slightly stuttering. That's because I'm also recording this screen as well on my computer, so that's why the CPU is getting a bit hammered, because it's now running a video, 2 cameras and all sorts of things like that. So that's, your experience may vary depending on the power of your computer. One last thing, I'll just go back to here so it's not working so hard. One last thing is that then we have a scene collection at the top here. And this, at the moment, is called First Collection. And in all these scenes and everything you've got set up, you can actually create whole new sets of those if you wanted. So if I go New, I can call this Another Collection. and you get reset back to the start of OBS with nothing in it at all. Yeah, and I can then go back to my collection and go back to my first collection, and it'll remember everything that it had, and so you can have whole sets. So for example, I teach the piano, so I have a set of scenes which I have for teaching the piano, which has a completely different setup, a completely different audio setup and view setup for working with my students on Zoom. But then when I want to stream live, I don't want to have any of that set up. I want to have it completely different. So I have a whole set of scenes which are then set up for streaming live. So scene collections are very good. Also, the other thing you can do is export your scene collection, which I highly recommend you do, which saves the settings to a file. So should terrible things happen, you can then just go to scene collection, import your scene collection, and it will bring back all your settings as they were before. Highly recommended for backing things up. So we've gone to the effort of creating all these lovely scenes. Should the worst happen to your computer, it'd be nice to have a backup copy of those settings. Again, it only has the settings. So this frame that we've got here, if I go to frame to face cam and the frame, that file still needs to exist in this location if you want to find it. If OBS needs to find it. If not, then that frame will just not appear. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for multiple scenes and for grouping and for your nested scenes. Again, this one has not been affected, so this one's going back to how we were before. But the nested scene is a fantastic thing and should be used as much as possible. It's kind of your one place where you can set everything up and then use that in multiple scenes from there. Great. From there on, we'll talk about a few effects and overlays in the next video. I'll see you then. Okay then, here we are again, and this time we're going to talk a little bit about effects or overlays. Really, all this boils down to is they're either a picture, an image, or a video that's going to be put on top of or behind something to provide visual effect, if you like, while you're doing your streaming or recording. So I'll just quick tour of the setup I have here. This one's called Just Face Cam. I'm going to skip to the bottom here where you can see Main Face Cam. So if I go to there, this is what the face cam is actually set up on. We did something very similar to this in a previous video. So I've just put a background, the actual camera, and then the frame on top of that, grouped that together for now just for ease in this particular scene, and then I've put the sound on there as well. So there's H5 on the face cam itself. I've got the chroma key to get rid of the background. You can see that it doesn't quite match, but I've trimmed it from that side, and I've applied the lookup table just to make it slightly, if I just tick it somewhere, there we go, it's just a little subtle effect, but it just stops my pasty skin from looking quite so pasty. And I've taken the colour correction off for the moment because it's a different day to the other days I've been recording, and the light is different from the window or the source of light I've got. So this is my main face cam, which I'm going to use elsewhere. So this is the scene that's going to hold the sound and the camera and all be together for any time I want this image used somewhere in a scene. So what I've done is I've capitalized the scene name, and I've also created a completely empty scene with some dashes in it. This does absolutely nothing other than make it really obvious in my scenes list that the ones underneath the dashes I should leave alone, because they're the ones which are going to be masters, if you like. I've then gone in just face cam. I've just lifted that scene, but all I've done is I've zoomed in slightly, so I just lose the gold border. So it's the same scene, I've just zoomed in, but I get the sound for free because that's all built into that scene. There's one then called outside camera. I don't live on Mars. I've just on the outside camera I've just applied a color correction to give it that weird purpley effect, just for fun really. It's just because they were just for the sake of something to look at. I've put that there, and then the screen share is the screen share of this desktop. So it's just to give you an idea of what 3 scenes might look like. I can click on these scenes individually, but as long as I've got if I've clicked on one and I've got it highlighted, then I can press my down cursor key and it'll go to the next one, and then I can press my down cursor key again, it'll go to the next one. There are keyboard bindings that you can use for scenes as well, so what and anything else really in OBS. So what we'll do is, if I go to settings, and when settings loads up, and if we go to hotkeys down here, what OBS is very good at, there's some standard ones which are to start streaming, stop recording, or start and stop recording, start and stop streaming, all the ones that are built in. But down here what we have is, every time you create something, it creates an entry in the settings screen. So we've got just facecam, it says switch to scene, and in here I can put any keyboard shortcut that isn't used by either Windows or Mac for something else, so that I can switch scene. And the nice easy thing to do is, if you've got a keyboard with a keypad on it, I can say just facecam, I'm going to type number 1 on the keypad, and then outside camera I'm going to type number 2 on the keyboard, and then screen share I'm going to type number 3 on the keypad. That's all I've done, just clicked in the box and then tap the number and then click OK. And now if I press number 2, then it'll go to the outside camera. If I press number 3, it'll go to screen share, and if I press number 1, it'll go back to the face cam. And that then makes things so much easier for moving between scenes. However, I will say that that's all within OBS, and you can link that to all sorts of things in order to get a key press. There's all sorts of devices that will do that, and I'm sure there are some apps that have been used as well to do it from a mobile device. However, one of the later videos, possibly the last video in the course, will cover the Elgato Stream Deck, which is a piece of equipment I've purchased, which makes changing scenes and turning things on and off so much easier, but that does require a purchase. So I've added it to the end of the course because I wanted the course to be everything you can do for free, really. So like I say, you can, in those keyboard shortcuts, if you like, settings and then hotkeys, you can have them for anything. So you can show and hide, so for example in main facecam, where's main facecam? Here. In there I can show and hide the frame facecam, so I'll do that on number 5, yeah, and then 5 again, and it should, I think, go back on, let's just, so if I go in here and go 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, it's turning the framed facecam group on and off with the number 5. That will then, of course, because this scene is using that scene, if I press 5 it'll still hide it. What it's doing is it's hiding the framed face cam here, but because this uses that scene, then that face cam will go. The nice thing is that I could use that, for example, here if I wanted to momentarily hide the face cam in my screen share because I was pointing to something down here, and then I can put the face cam back again once I've done with that. So the settings for the keyboard shortcuts, or the hotkeys as they call it, is brilliant. It really is very, very good indeed. So I highly recommend you use that. That's a great way to switch between scenes. Talking about switching between scenes, we've used the transition before, so if I change this from fade to stinger that we chose before, and then I change scene, then it'll use that stinger transition that I created, and that will use that every single time I switch between scenes. But there is an option, if I change this back to fade, so now if I switch scenes I just get the fade. There is an option, if I right click the scene, I can go to transition override, and I can say, this one, when you change to this scene, please run this transition. So now this one, if I change from just facecam to outside camera, so here's outside camera, I get the fade because that's the general one, but if I switch back to just facecam, then that will use the transition that's been overridden on the scene. So again, I click away, it's fade. If I click back on just facecam, there we go, we'll get the actual scene transition we've asked for. It's an option. The thing I find a little bit tricky about it is that it's only when you transition to the scene, not when you transition away from the scene again. But it's still, it kind of, in this instance, it does sort of make sense. So you're going from talking to people and then you're going to go, here's some screen sharing information, here's the outside camera, and now we'll just sum up the end of today by going back into the office and have a little conversation to camera with the sort of nice transition back to the scene. Personally, I choose a transition and I use it across all my changes, but the option is there, and I wanted to show it to you. To get rid of it, you go back to transition override and you just go none. So right click on the scene, go back to none, and now everything will fade because that's what we've got set on. So that's transition override. Now let's have a little talk about overlays and effects. And as I said, really they're just images or videos that you put on top of your image, whatever you're showing. So let's go with this. Let's put an overlay over top of me. So let's go for image, and I'm going to call this viewfinder because it's going to be pretty obvious why in a moment. Okay, and I've got a PNG here, a nice transparent PNG that's scaled to the right size, and now I have a viewfinder over top of everything I've got before. And quite quickly you can see that these overlays can add quite a lot of fun and sometimes additional detail. If you've watched Twitch streamers or YouTube streamers, they often have latest donation and all sorts of other things on an overlay. So the overlay itself will be an image or a video which is running, or running some animation, and then on top of that they've got some plugins which then look and listen for donations or listen for new subscribers, that sort of thing. That's slightly beyond the plugins are slightly beyond the scope of this course. This is all about getting you started and getting some nice effects. So viewfinder I can then turn on and off if I so desire. If I press the right button, if I turn it on and off, then the viewfinder will come and go. So that's images. We can do exactly the same thing. Let's turn him off. We'll do exactly the same thing, but with an image, with a video. That was an image. So I'm going to go to media source, and I'm going to add avatar, and I'm going to go and get this, which is Mish Chatbot, and I'll loop it for now. And here you can see a video which is transparent. Now there are different types of video. In order to have a transparent video, it does need to have an alpha channel. So there are you can get overlays and get videos and transitions and all sorts of things from the internet. I've created this one myself. I used Final Cut to create a transparent video and put these images in and slid them around. It's actually surprisingly easy to do. You just need to have a little bit of research to work out how things go, and you can soon produce something like this chatbot on your own. It doesn't take a great deal of effort to do. There's plenty of free tools to allow you to do it. But the idea behind this is simply that when I'm streaming piano, I'm not always looking at chat, but my wife kindly looks after the chat and keep things going, and so I pop this up occasionally so that she can see or get some credit and encourage people to talk to her. The one thing we do though, I'm going to just go back into the properties by double clicking. You can either double click your source or right click properties. It'll take you to the same place. What I'm going to do is get rid of the loop and then click OK. So now when it shows, it'll play the video, which is essentially what it is, and then the video will go away and she won't come back again. This is important because for this particular video, for the effect to look nice, she wants to appear, so I'll just unclick that and click it again. She wants to appear, the little chat messages need to fly up past her, the little chat messages disappear, and then she fades away again, and that's it, we don't see her anymore. So for this instance, what we need to do is, in order to show that again, I need to have hidden it and then show it again. So if I was put that on a key binding, I'd need to press the key twice, and so that's something you have to keep an eye on. There is a way around that with the Stream Deck that I mentioned earlier, because the Stream Deck you can have timed buttons, so you press the button and it hits it once and then it delays and waits for the length of time for the video to go by, and then it'll hide the source again. I'll show that later in the Stream Deck video, but again I will say obviously you need to purchase a Stream Deck for that to work. So that's that. We don't just have to have images, avatars of my wife. We can also have all sorts of other things. So just for fun, I'm going to call this tornado. And we'll grab this, and in effects, I think I've got a tornado somewhere. I have. And we'll OK that. And this one is just a tornado that will come, and if I transform and fit to screen, then it'll come and obscure the whole screen. And with the same thing, it's not looped, so I've not set it to loop. So then I'll press the button again and it will spin in and occupy the screen and spin out again. Yeah, OBS just does this for you. You don't, as long as you've got the file, it doesn't care. It'll just do the work for you. You don't have to do anything. Let's try the other one, and the last one, let's say wind turbine. These are, I realise these are weird and obscure. Why would you want a tornado? Why would you want a wind turbine or a UFO even? Well, that's just, you know, you'd have to watch my piano streams to realise why these silly things appear. So there we go. There's a little wind turbine that can just sit there and be a wind turbine. And it just sits there and lives, and I think it's quite effective how these things just appear on the stream. And they're so easy to do because you just need a transparent video. And away you go. One other thing we can do, I'm just going to clear these out by removing. Yes, I'll do the next one by just pressing the backspace key and backspace key. Yeah. The reason I'm doing this is because if we look down in the bottom corner, the CPU percentage, because I'm recording the screen as well by another method, then my computer is working a little bit hard. Again, depending on your computer process, you can, or processor, you can deal with more things at once. Mostly it's when you show things, because then it's having to actually do the rendering. Okay, so that's a video and an image. We can also have some slightly more involved videos, so we can look online. For example, this great YouTube channel called No Copyright Motion Graphics, where there is just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of just backgrounds like this great spinning earth. Most of them are don't have any titles on or anything, and they all, pretty much all of them, loop really nicely. So when you get to the end of the video, it just starts and it's seamless, and they're absolutely brilliant. They're really, really, really good. So these ones are all copyright free. There are also other YouTube channels and other video sources where sometimes you have to just provide information on where you got the video. You have to show a link to where they came from originally. Do be very careful and make sure that you don't stream somebody else's content essentially, or record for your own, for use for commercial purposes, something that isn't your own. There are all sorts of websites and various tools that you can download YouTube videos. Again, make sure that they're copyright free before you do so. But once you've got them, then for example, if I go to my downloads folder here and I bring it over from over here, then I have a video which is confetti. If I look at that, you probably heard that. There's got some children's voices going yay with the confetti behind it. So I would like to use that in OBS. So I simply just go to here and I go media source, pick it up like a video, so let's call it confetti, pick it up from the video, from the file there, not going to loop it, click OK, and there we have it. There's the confetti. I'm going to right click, transform and fit to screen like that. It's gone again because it's not looped, so I'm going to press the button again, and there it is. To make things easier while I fiddle with it, I'm just going to put the loop on, and so now it will keep looping while I fiddle with it. You can see the sound from those children is very, very loud, so we're going to bring that right down because it just wants to be an effect somewhere underneath my voice while I'm talking. And lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a filter because it's a source like any other, so I'm going to add a filter, and I'm going to add the same chroma key filter that we added to the face cam, and it'll get rid of the green. Again, you can, if you're really pedantic about it, we can be really careful and try and trim off any little green bits we can see, but to be honest, the default works really nicely, especially for a lot of these free videos, because the chroma key color they've chosen is exactly where it wants to be. So there we go, that's going forever now. If I go back here, turn the loop off, click OK, it will happen once, and once it's happened it'll disappear, and again if I wanted to see that again I'd have to press the button and press the button again. So that's great. These are the things that you can do. So quite quickly, they're just videos or images, but you can do some great things with them, just to make them, just to add all sorts of fun things to your stream or your recording, and they're so simple to do. Just go have a go and see what you can do. Yeah, marvellous. Okay, let's have a look at something else in the next lesson.